Okay.
Oh, Moses.
There's a lot of them.
I guess. That's
Short meeting, a lot of signatures. That's the trade-off, I guess, right?
That's okay. I know, we got some bills from 2020 that showed up. I can't believe it.
Recording in progress.
Farm Gillette.
I didn't want to butcher it.
That's all right. We're Americans. We butcher. And my grandpa was a butcher too.
Well, my last name is Butcher. My dad was a butcher too. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the April 29th, 2022 meeting of the Pittsfield Town Council. I'd like to open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all join me, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. So we'll ask just for a moment of silence, please. Very well, thank you all very much. So I look to the council. Let's look for a motion for the adoption of the minutes. The regular meeting on April 5th, 2022, please.
Make a motion that we adopt the regular meeting minutes and notes of April 5th, 2022.
Second. Motion and a second. Any questions or comments, gentlemen? Very well, hearing none, I sense we're ready to vote. All those in favor of adopting the meeting minutes of the regular meeting held on April 5th, 2022, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Very well, the ayes have it. The meeting minutes have been adopted. Thank you all very much. So we will move on to presentations, congratulations, and introductions. And this evening we have two gentlemen from the Maine DOT, Mr. Dale Dowdy, Director of Outreach and Planning, and Jared Farngolette, Region 405 Transportation Planner for the Maine DOT opportunities, specifically the Planning Partnership Initiative. So these gentlemen will have a presentation for us, and if need be, we'll have questions and answers afterwards. So gentlemen, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Hi, nice to meet everyone. Jared Gillette, or Farm Gillette. This is my boss, Dale. So we're actually here today to talk about a couple things. Pittsfield has quite a project in the work plan, which involves complete rehab of a stretch of Route 11, as well as some mill and fill, and then some sidewalk treatments that Maine DOT has agreed to do ADA and tip downs for a certain portion, as well as do design for other sections. And then the town has a verbal agreement to construct other sections of sidewalks, roughly 475 feet south of McCarty to the railroad tracks. And this is, contingent upon the congressionally designated spending. It's roughly $4.4 million, as well as, your town has raised quite a bit of its own money for these projects. But there is also other programs, which is our Planning Partnership Initiative. And what that would do is take this project, which is pretty comprehensive in its scope and has a lot going on, and is a pretty, I wouldn't say it's fully transformed, but it has quite a bit of treatments that would be beneficial to the town. And through the Planning Partnership Initiative, or the PPI, you could have a more comprehensive and cohesive approach to bring all these pieces together, which would lead to a much larger vision of what the town could be and have a much greater impact on the look, feel, and character of your historic downtown. And that's sort of, sorry for the planner speak and jargon and urban design lingo, but that's ultimately what you aspire to with these larger projects. And so it's a decision that the town has to make is, do we push forward with what we've got in the pipes right now, or do we have a little pause? And a PPI would bring about, roughly a 9 to 11 month pause on some of those components. However, with that sort of, it's not hitting the reset button, but hitting the, I guess nobody has a VCR anymore, the slow mode on Netflix for a little bit. It could allow the town some time to really step back, think about where it is right now and where it would like to maybe get back to or to aspire to. And that's the power of what a PPI can do, is it really brings your community together, has a sort of a cohesive design document that comes out of it, a study, which I've shared a couple examples from, I believe, Dover, Foxcroft, and Millinocket was another town. And that's the decision that, this council, mayor and council has to make, as well as, your citizenry. And that's really all that I have today, brief and simple, and this is day 12 for me on the job, so maybe my boss has a bit more.
So the way that would work, if you chose that path, is, you already have a congressionally designated project today. That's how the money came about. Is what we do is we go work with you for your vision for what downtown would look like. Right now, as Jared said, it's a pretty comprehensive project, especially for the road core, but the sidewalks are being done in pieces, right? There's a piece that we're doing now, there's a piece the town's looking to do. I really can't tell, at least looking at the scope, what's going to happen from Somerset to Madawaska on that piece of sidewalk. As Jared said, what we do is we take a few months to take a look at all that, figure out what it is the town would like that to look like, and then we would apply for either one of the new bipartisan infrastructure bill grants to add on to the one that we already have, or we would go after another congressionally designated spending to add on to. So there's obviously no guarantee to those, but it would give you a chance to take a look at the whole thing. So you'd have one suite, one set of road that looks the same the whole way and meets one vision. You start down at the south, and there's a sidewalk on the west side, and it picks up eventually by Nelson Road or whatever that's called. I may have forgotten the name. And then kind of continues, and it's just lots of people doing a lot of different things, and it's really not a comprehensive look. Jared and I aren't trying to sell one over the other. It's just with the new village program and the new planning partnership kind of process, it gives us another chance to look for some additional money and additional scope. Now, those aren't guarantees. Those may or may not happen a year from now, and we may be able to continue. One of the things we want to do, if you chose to go that way, is really sit down with the town manager and really understand, we have a grant, you have a series of grants, make sure, before we signed an agreement and did that we could do that in such a way that we didn't lapse any of those. That's one thing we haven't had an opportunity to do yet, but we would do that before we started this process. So that's kind of just how it would work. So a year from now or so, we might be applying for another grant or another congressionally designated spending event to make that more of a robust view of downtown. The only last thing I'd throw in is, this rehab, it'll be a long time before DOT comes back and does a rehab, because, we'll rehabilitate it and then we'll maintain it going on like in the past, right? So that's just the way the world works. So there is a little opportunity here to maybe do something more comprehensive if you want, but if you like it the way it's kind of laid out today, that's okay as well.
So we'll start with a couple questions here, if you don't mind, gentlemen. Just for my clarification, we've been talking about this project, not specifically that part of it, for, I think, 2016. It's been a long time. In the brew. So the PPI, the Planning Partnership Initiative, is that the same or similar or related to the VPI, which is the...
Yeah, it's kind of a, we got to kind of straighten those terms out at some point, but the planning partnership initiative is really just the precursor to figure out what you want. The village partnership is really where we would sign an agreement that we would co-apply for whatever funding to make that PPI happen. So one's really just a planning, it's really the whole thing's a village partnership, but the first step is that planning piece, where, the town can sit down with us and with others, and we might even hire a consultant together and figure out exactly what you want all that to look like and how that would all function.
Okay. So, I'm going to have some very seemingly nebulous questions, kind of really...
We gave a big nebulous speech, so that's okay.
No worries. So, how do we as a town, how do we start this initiative? Have you seen it another place? Millinock was one place that has gone through this?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch, and I'll talk about one that's bigger, but similar, that we're right in the middle of. So even though before, I'll talk about a couple. Even before we called this Village Partnership Initiative, if you drove through Belgrade recently, if you drove through Hollowell recently, or downtown Waterville recently, there's a lot of changes in those communities, and those really started with one of these planning partnership initiatives, and then we went and sought funding to do something. If you drove through Hollowell 6, 8, 10 years ago, and you drove through it again now, it doesn't really look the same. It's got that now, it's a comprehensive look of the roadway, the sidewalks, drainage all works together, and it looks like a downtown. If you went downtown Belgrade, which is a different character, right? It's kind of the more rural one, and you drove through Belgrade a few years ago, there was a narrow piece of pavement with gravel shoulders and people would park off the side. Now it's a much more kind of comprehensive view of downtown, the integrated parks. So the one we're doing right this moment, in fact we'll be filing it next week, is Sanford. In Sanford we did because they're kind of a hub community like here, but a lot of main downtowns, there's several roads, state highways that come into the heart of an old mill town. We went through planning studies on a series of those in partnership with Sanford. We've pulled all those together, and we're going after a RAISE grant. And that's a lot bigger than here just because the town's bigger, but that's to the tune of 25 to 33 million. It's going to be around $33 million, where the town, for all that improvement, going to be investing about 10% of that total. DOT will be investing a bunch, and then the federal government will be paying about 80%. So that's kind of the end result of a series of these, these studies that ended in an application. Now, if that application is successful, that's huge. If it's not, then we'll go back to the drawing board and find other avenues to try to peck away at that. So that's kind of similar. You're at the kind of beginning.
Right.
Again, we got to look and make sure none of this money lapses in this period of time, but
right.
So we have time to do that.
So we as the town, we literally need to figure out what we want it to look like. I mean, as you said, it clarifies an identity. It's like, say, you go to Hollowell and it has a very specific feel and whatnot, and then Belgrade and Pittsfield will be different. So
and it should be. Right?
So the onus is on us as the council, as the town, as the residents. Is okay. This is what we'd like to do. Here's our vision. Because you can't do that for us. I mean, you can't act on anything if we don't have anything to
of course not. And we shouldn't either. It's your character, right? So the way we would start this, if the town chose to go this other avenue, is we would write a memorandum of understanding between the two of us. We would enter into agreement, figure out what it is, how extensive you want to do what you just described, that visioning. That would be 50-50. If we needed to bring in a landscape architect, if that's what you thought you wanted to do, or if you thought you had somebody in-house or somebody that wanted to do things pro bono, but we participate in any of that half and half with you. So if you need to hire some experts, and then what we bring to the table is the traffic and traffic calming, pedestrian crossings, all that stuff. So it's your vision, it's our technical support behind that vision, and if we need to hire external parties, that's a 50-50 thing.
Right. So recommend or give us an example of the other towns that started, because I'm kind of wallowing on this. It's a very large thing to try to identify and chew on. How did they start? Did they form a town committee? Did the council or the town government do it? Was there a partnership right from the very get-go with your suggestions? I mean, the DOT?
I think they've gone all those ways. Everything from, we're coming to town with a project in a number of years, maybe back, if you step back to 2016 or something, we're coming to town with a project and, the town says, geez, we'd really like to, this is our one chance to do something. So that's kind of at the ground floor, and we kind of started out with planning partnership from there. A different example, I just came from Cumberland earlier today, and what Cumberland's done is they kind of worked internally with their engineer. They've got an intersection in town that's a flashing yellow light, but they'd like that to be, it's called West Cumberland, they'd like that to be a village. They have a bunch of pedestrian issues there. They've been able to try to market it as a place where they're going to have some small commercial stuff and expand some housing. And they just never been able to get traction because people can't cross the road, and it's a high-speed place and it just never met signal warrants. So what they did is they just did a little bit of visioning, and they came to us. But on their way there, they had one forum with the council. The council called in the neighborhood. The neighborhood came in and expressed what they wanted. The council had some ideas around the roundabout. And then they went and had a forum in the neighborhood. And they chose to do that before we engaged with them to try to do the more technical part. So I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think one of the things we could do, if the council so chose, is to ask us to sit down with the city manager and come up with a kind of a plan. What earmarks do you have? What is the potential that they might lapse? Make sure none of them lapse. If a bunch of them are going to lapse, then we should probably not do something, right? But if they're not going to lapse, how would we start? What got me interested in the community was Peter Vignew called me one day and just said, you guys got this project, but I'd really like downtown to be something that's inviting to my customers, but also just people to Pittsfield. So that was kind of how this started, and that's kind of how a lot of them started.
If you clarify, you use the term lapse. Are you talking about funding?
Yeah, you have a couple, I know, I don't know the details, but I've heard. Catherine's told us you have a series of grants. Of course, we have this one. We just should lay all those out, what they're for, and make some of them have timelines for either obligation or spending, and we should lay those out and just make sure whatever we do no harm, right? If we start down this project, we think some are going to lapse, we ought to talk about that. Is there a way to make sure they don't, or is that a reason not to really go through this whole process?
Right, or jettison if they...
Yeah, and I just don't want to do anything, any damage, that's all.
So where do you see, at this point, of course you've been in other towns that have had this kind of initial talk. You were mentioning, 6 to 7 months possibly to come to fruition if we can get immediate traction? Yeah,
it takes all time, better than another southern Maine town lately that I'm guessing it's going to take them a year and a half, partly because that's complex, they have visions, but they're multiple different visions, right? It's going to take them a while. I think you guys might be ahead of that, right? So I think it's pretty simple, not simple, but straightforward. I think you guys have I think just by talking to a few people in town, I got a suspicion that it's not going to take you very long to get to it. So probably about that, yeah.
So it's kind of...
And then this time next year, the congressionally designated spending will occur again, that we just applied for 8 or 10 communities, and RAISE will be open again. So those are two opportunities for us to seek additional funding.
Okay.
One last thing that we might do, say you choose to go down that path, one thing we might do is, Pittsfield might be relatively small in the Sanford case. Sanford's a standalone. But say I just came from Cumberland, maybe you and Cumberland are ready about this time next year. I don't know if you will be, but if you are, Cumberland has some of the boxes that look good on grants, like maybe they're lowering vehicle miles traveled, so it's helping with greenhouse gases. Washington likes that, right? But you're in an economically challenged county, right? And kind of reinvigorating your economy might look good. Your two applications we might attach those two, work with the three of you and put them in together, so we get a larger project, but we also get a project that checks a lot of the Washington boxes. And there's good regional distribution. So that's one thing we can do too.
Right, understood. I've been having the podium all the time. Councilors, do you have anything that you wanted to bring up to these gentlemen? And we'll get to the public. Anything at all?
I guess, what are your indicators that we're further ahead in the planning process than what I think we are, I guess? Like, what are you seeing that I don't see? Because I don't feel like we're 12 months away from having a vision of what this was going to look like in 5 years. I feel like we're further than that, but
Okay.
what do you see that makes you think we're closer?
Well, I'm not sure I would know any lot less than you are, a lot less than you would. I just, in talking, a little bit, we've been talking to the town manager, I've talked to a couple other people in town. It just feels like it's something you guys would get your arms around fairly quickly, but I have no idea. You may sit down and say, we want better connections down to MCI, you may say you want better connections up to, geez, I'm losing my mind today. The small people up around the corner here. And maybe those are different. I don't know what you want. It just feels like, Pittsfield always feels like kind of a candy place. I guess that's probably not a good word.
So you think 12 months or less than that, we could have something rolling? And I think honestly the concern is they delay this project more than it's already been delayed. And it's like,
Yeah.
but I mean, we don't want to step over an opportunity for 8 months either. I think that'd be foolish.
Well, one thing I'd add too is my background is in landscape architecture, and I like to go around small. I'm from Calais and Eastport down that way, and I look at historic downtowns and I think, okay, well, here's a town that's got good bones, and here's a town that maybe has missing some of that historic infrastructure. Pittsfield ultimately has a lot of what it needs right there. It's just a matter of fleshing out, putting meat back on those bones. And so you've already got that look, feel, and character of that historic, sort of Norman Rockwell-esque downtown. You've got the historic district with the sidewalks and the esplanades and, I don't know if it's a Carnegie Library or whoever historically donated to build the town library.
It is, actually.
Okay. It looked like it.
There you go.
But you've already got a lot of the pieces in place, and I think even too, starting with what the DOT work plan had laid out, you've got sort of the components that would work well together that might help speed that along.
So let's talk about what happens if we did start down this process and you guys got into a place where you needed more time and just didn't get the community together. The worst thing we could do, or what we could do is, and it's not the worst thing, probably one way to go about it is through this planning process. Maybe there's a way, it'd be nice to do it all at once, right? But if that just doesn't seem to be coming to that place, or we can't get a grant the first time around, right, for whatever reason, it may be possible, and that's something we would explore with the town manager and our project manager, but maybe we could find ways through that planning process to say, okay, here's what we are going to do now, and then we're going to go for something else later, but we do it in such a way that we set the curves right, we do a lot of things so we don't have to redo them, right, or we skip some things because we're going to pick them up later, but we do the core of the road. I think the planning process, we could find ways to either grab the whole thing or be able to pull it apart in ways that make sense to be able to do it in a staged approach. Right? And again, we're not advocating for one approach or another. It's exactly what you said earlier. This is your vision, your town. We come in and offer suggestions, but it's really your vision and what you want. And if what we have laid out right now between what we're doing and the town's doing, it's kind of where you'd like to head. We're perfectly fine with that.
So how long has PPI been around? Like, how long has it been a thing?
Planning partnerships have been around. I left DOT for a while in 2017. I was down there for a bit and then came back. So it was around for a little while before that. It was really this focusing on villages is new. And what's made that new is this new infrastructure bill. I mean, we've been doing the ones I described before, but we've been doing one every couple of years. What our thought is with the delegation that we have now, and their success and our partnership with them in this new infrastructure bill, that we're going to be able to do more than we've been able to. We're going to be able to secure more money than we used to be able to secure for villages instead of just highways.
So, just probably a question and a comment mixed together. I'll segue on what Councilor Saucier had mentioned about the time frame to get this done, and that's been my thought. I'm just concerned about how this would endanger, if it was probably too extreme of a word to use, the project that we have now for the whole Main Street rehab. And you had mentioned, I think you probably answered my question, you had mentioned that if it can't get done now, during this, ideally, have it all done at once. Go through and have it all done, the initiatives that put in place, the sidewalks, trees, whatever we decide, the roads done, the sewer, water done, everything we've been planning for a number of years now. But there is a potential or a possibility that if we have something that's in our scope, that we can be in a scope, we certainly don't want that to impact the project overall. Can that be done at a later date, like you're saying, set it up for the sidewalks later so you don't have to re-engineer it, so build it so that you expect to put sidewalks in next year, so when the sidewalks come in, it's just a matter of laying it down and it's in place.
So what we would do if the council was interested, there's a couple of things we would do immediately before we did anything else to set anything in motion. If you said, geez, this interests us, I think a couple things is if you said, we'd like you to work with the town manager, we'd look at your grants, we'd look at our grants, we go back and meet with our project development team, the project manager and the director of their director, and sit down and figure out a couple things. One, how that funding is constructed to make sure that's okay. Where there are good places our project manager could put it on hold and hold it for a little while without causing jeopardy. And I think in a month or so, we could do all that and report back to you before you made a decision. We haven't done that just because we've been meeting with, I've been in 2 communities today, Jared's been in a couple today. So in addition to our normal work, we've been running around. So, but as soon as, a town starts to say, we would at least like you to delve into it, we'll delve in and we can come back and report more specifically on how your grants might impact and we might put those in jeopardy. Could we stop the project? Could we segregate? What options would we have if we got to 12 months or, next January or March or February? Yeah. And we come back and report to you. So I know I'm not answering those things very definitive today, but we just haven't delved into it because we weren't sure. This is something you had any interest in.
Yeah. That will help us define the fiscal outline. If we have an outline like this, and we're talking this, and we can expand, but if we're talking this, yet we only have that, that would be an excellent start.
I think one thing I don't know, that I just didn't have a chance to look into it, I don't think Jared did either, is just understanding, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Randy, what we know about drainage. That's under a concrete core, there's some, that raises some other interesting issues. When we rehabilitate things, we do it a little bit different. We rubblize down south of here, way back, and, what would we do through downtown? So I think we can come back with a little bit more information if this was of any interest to you. If it's not, then we won't. So it's up to you guys.
Very interesting. Councils, anything else?
To me, it's interesting that Catherine, our grants have been extended twice now.
Several grants have been extended several times, and then we've gotten more grants. It started out as just one grant for one project, along with the state's one project. And then as the projects were delayed, more money became available for more options, so we just kept adding on and adding on. So we have all these building blocks, but we are still missing some components that make it all go together. It's still a great project if we went forward today, but you could make it a wonderful project for the next 100 years or so, something that is a once-in-a-lifetime thing that we can do. So the one grant that we would have to be very cautious of is our community development block grant. The others, I think, can be extended, and some of them they've already given us the money, and I have it in escrow and everything. But that one we've had for the sidewalk for a while. We did provide the jobs information. We've done all the work on it. It just needs to be spent. So one item that MDOT had suggested is that, and the Department of Economic Community Development had indicated that if they got to the point where the federal government says this needs to be done, that we could put the money in escrow with the main DOT, and we would have cut a check, and then perhaps that would satisfy everyone. But we have to agree on how the money was going to be spent, of course.
Well, that would be the details that you would mention
Correct.
between the town and
Those are all the
DOT.
points that we would explore.
So what's the amount that what's the amount of that grant that is in
That grant is $250,000. We've got a $260,000 grant, which is relatively new. I actually haven't signed some of the paperwork, so we can keep pushing it along here in case we're going to go forward.
So what was the deadline for the $250,000?
It will be June 30th again this year. So we would try to get an extension.
Which you would have to do anything.
Correct.
I mean,
Correct.
they're not doing, that's not happening for another year or more anyway.
Yeah, and the more that we show for information on what's going on, what the DOT's doing, the better chance we have of getting it extended.
Right. So regardless of what we do here,
It would need an extension.
it's something, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that'll be part of the, we'll put meat on the bones, as Jared mentioned, try to get them outlined. Because right now, 15 minutes ago, okay, we have this big project, let's try and define it. I think once we get the skeleton put in place with the MDOT in the town, okay, here's what we have to work with. Here's what may be in jeopardy, here's the amount. So it'll help us kind of focus on what we'd like as compared to what's realistic.
I think the outline will be very helpful in if we can talk with the project engineers that are working on the construction now, so they're not blindsided by this.
Jared's had initial conversation with them. We haven't gotten into any details because of this.
Very good.
Council's anything else?
Have you done some projects in the past as a two-part? Have you done that before?
Probably none are coming to mind this very moment, but I have to think about that.
I'm just curious. It must be.
For other reasons we have. It gets difficult or it gets interesting depending on whether the sidewalks are attached or separated like they are here. I don't know, and that's going to be back to the vision. Do you want those separate sidewalks? With a separate, it makes it a little easier to do the road tour and do the sidewalks in a separate piece until you get into the downtown. The other thing we can investigate, I don't know if this is even possible, is would it also be possible to separate the project and say from Somerset North, and it's a much simpler project, right, to the town line, could that go forward with the current funding, and then could you also use your CDBG for the sidewalks up there? And then we spend more focus in the downtown with some future funding. I don't know. That just may be. We'll investigate that, and if that's an option or even a possibility, we'll bring that back as an option.
Yeah.
So one item we also have that got delayed was the paving on Madawaska Road, because we got in the midst of when the road was going to be paved, I think 2 years before, we got a Northern Border Regional Commission grant, shockingly, to take care of the sewer so that the SAS building could be developed, because there were so many issues going on. So that was a godsend. However, the trench paving is getting pretty bad, and it was scheduled to go along with the Main Street project and everything. So I don't know if we could get an extra coating for a while.
That was something, talking with Randall Barrows, the project engineer with this, there were some potential opportunities to tide things over. And the Madawaska Avenue to town line, there is mill and fill in the road plan as it is right now, with some spot drainage planned. I think it'd be a matter of we can just go back and talk with Randy and see, things. It almost feels like, if I'm wrong, it seems like things sometimes are a little bit flexible with moving in certain directions with projects to help towns in the interim to then get to that sort of 100-year lifespan goal. It's like you're trying to get to the Carnegie Library. How do we build something, for the next 100 years for your residents?
Which seems to be more difficult than getting to Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, probably.
Council, anything else before I open up the public? Very well, thank you. Anyone in the audience would like to speak or comment on this? Mr. Viggio, please.
Andy, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate that. You're very helpful, and perhaps we can pull this all together. There's a significant opportunity here and interest in the community to enhance Main Street and Route 100, and we've got some challenges with the sewer, as you well know, and some water, and that needs to be corrected. Unfortunately, even here on Main Street, we've got some serious challenge. We've got a new building over there, and we've got the sewer backing up and coming into our cellar because of some work that was done many years ago. This will be a great opportunity to correct some of those things, and I applaud you for coming here, both of you, today. And it's this program really works, and it has worked for other communities, but it means that this community's got to come together as well and work in a collective way to make this project successful. We can change this community. This is a big start, and thank you very much for your help and your guidance here.
Anything else, Peter?
I think that's enough. I'm ready to go to work anytime you're ready.
Okay.
I think you're in good hands with these two gentlemen, though.
I feel you're right, Peter, thank you. Heather, anything you'd like to bring up?
Yes, thank you. Heather Donahue, 461 Red Road here in Pittsfield. You touched on a couple things, Dale, that I was thinking about, is whether or not this could be a two-part thing, because so much work has already been put into the initial project now. And I'm glad to hear that your landscape architecture is your thing, because I think that's the part that we're really missing is, what does this final thing look like? What does it feel like? What is the living room of our downtown to welcome people going to look like? And so that's the part that hasn't been decided yet in any of this, I feel. The mechanics of the project as it is now are pretty far through the planning process, and there's a timeline for it. But even with that, it's not really slated to start at least for another year. So do we have time can we say the project as it is going to go forward, and then we use that time to go through this visioning process for the rest of the downtown, and then tie in the feel and the aesthetics of it as a whole, so that we're not losing that time period that we've been kind of treading water here for several years, and we keep yes, it's happening. No, it's not. Yes, and it's this.
Yeah.
We're kind of at this point where it's just I strongly feel that we just can't even move on something rather than, because this other funding is not a guaranteed thing.
No.
It could go through, it could have another administration coming in and change things. It's so uncertain versus the project that we have that's designed now. It has funding in place. We know what the cost to the town is going to be. A future project that expands it, we don't know what our portion of the cost is going to be and where that fits in with our budget. And so that would be a huge concern to put everything on pause and not go forward with anything that we have in place. But at the same time, like Pete said, this is such an opportunity for the town, and really to put some cohesiveness to it. Is there a way to, and you probably can't answer this right now, but really just move forward with the plans that are in place with an idea that this other portion of it would be coming afterwards? And does that also give us some advantage in the grant process, in that, with the federal government, whoever's granting the funds, say, this town has an idea, they know what they're doing, they're already moving on part of it, and they're ready to expand that vision to another part of town to really complete the whole thing.
I think to I'll answer with the caveat that we need to go back and look, right? But I'll give you what I think will happen is the project, if we decide to do the broader, the project probably cannot go ahead as it's designed. I think we might be able to pluck things out and adjust the project. We might be able to say the really visioning is going to be for Somerset South or Puritan South or something like that, and do something else. The problem is a lot of this stuff, and Mr. You mentioned a couple, need to be integrated. And once you start to curb, is the drainage adjustments that need to be made. Once you set curb, especially when you get from the railroad tracks up to Somerset, and even over the hill a little bit, all that curb is going to be dependent on what you end up doing ultimately with the sidewalks and other features. So it may not be the project going forward exactly the way it is today, but elements of the project might. And I think that's part of the strategic thing we'd have to do as we move forward. What could go forward now, and should it, or should it all wait? And I think that's a couple decision points that we'll make with council, not on our own. We'll bring back options. But I don't think you can build a project as it's designed today through town and then go back and do transformative things, especially, you know, from Randy's end or from the, you know, those things are going to need to be integrated because they touch each other, right? And as Mr. Vicky said, there are things that are underneath those things that may
So
need
the
to
project
be.
is just doing the surface type stuff, it's not doing the more deep level things,
The
like
suits-
the major sewer
yeah.
things and the water stuff.
So-
And is it,
There's spot drainage for some areas. There is, you know, there is a complete rehab with drainage for certain sections, but it's not everywhere. It's not throughout town. And I think you have a valid apprehension about, okay, we've got a bird in hand, what's going to fly away? And this is sort of the why do we plan? One thing about having a plan in place is that it shows to funders you've got a shovel-ready project, and so you're much more likely to get that funding if you've got a community-vetted process that says to the feds, it says to the states, it says to private foundations that would support something like this, that you've got a community process, a public process, and you've actually got something on paper that we can then stick the shovels into the ground. And that goes a long way to help securing the funding. So, yeah, it is, you know, there's this thing planned, but then there's what could be. And the what could be sometimes actually works out.
I think we'd come back with those. I think everything Jared said is valid. I think we just need to take a look. We need to spend some time now and take a look at where we are today, where we could be, how the funding would all work, and making sure we put nothing in jeopardy, nothing be lost. Or if something's lost, we all agree that let's let that one slide because it's worth the venture. But there's, you know, sewer beyond our drainage, and I don't know that we made compromises because of concrete. But that's the stuff we're going to have to sit down with Randy and really dig into. If you ask us to do that, you just didn't want to invest that time, right?
so the project, we've pretty much been talking about like Somerset Ave. You know, is there, no, I'm sorry, not Somerset Ave, Main Street. Somerset Ave is also a state road and had recent work done on it, but from my understanding, there's still some drainage issues there in heavy water at Point. Is that correct? Is that
There are,
like
yeah.
water in different places? So is there a way for that to also be incorporated, or are you just one straight shot?
So if we decide to go the village route, part of the discussion would be, what's the village? You know, what we and the town defining as the village. So it could be, include a portion of Somerset. I don't know that it goes all the way to the interstate, but is there a portion of Somerset where I noticed there's some places where there's low curb reveal, there probably is drainage around those. Looked like some water set in some driveways. We didn't get here until quite a bit after the heavy rain came today, but that's something we certainly could talk about what the village means. Is that, again, how far north does it go? How far south does it go? Yeah, so we could discuss all of those.
We could certainly put that into our proposal. I mean, as you mentioned, my vision is the village in and out, the main route through. But Somerset Avenue is a very large part of this town. It has become over the years and has done a lot of work to it. But that certainly could be one of the proposals that we, the town, can develop. Okay, this is what we'd like to do. I mean, just because everything essentially will be on the table initially until we get the framework that the DOT and the town would work together. Okay, this is what we have. Here are our parameters and our limits. You know, so then we may have to trim away or may have the great opportunity of even adding.
And are we talking about just like paving, sidewalk, water, sewer? Is utilities involved in there at all? Like cleaning up all the wires and everything? And there seems to be a real issue with people driving into streetlights in our town and, you know, those types of things.
Yeah, I think
Is there a way to-
certainly street lighting. In some places, we are talking to some people about overhead utilities doing something else with them. That gets really expensive really quickly. That's not a bad thing. That's just it just gets expensive quickly. So it's something we can certainly talk about. But street lighting would be part of the downtown rehabilitation, certainly. All of that, and signal here would be part of that. One of the things we didn't talk about a lot, and I know it's partly because, and I just don't remember where they are, I haven't been downtown Pittsfield for a couple of years, but after the last paving, it's hard to tell where crossings are. We want to look at those. And are there any other enhancements we want to do related to crossings? There's really not very many marked today. I understand why. And as Sherry said, there's a lot of elements in town that how we do the street, whether it's the library or whether it's the old train station, how do you interact with those from the streetscape standpoint? That's all stuff we really can.
Anything else, Heather?
Thank you.
And I think to your point, and Jared made it too, the bird in the hand, I get that. And it took you a long time to get hold of the darn thing, right? But this bird's in the bush. One thing that is different about DOT recently, and one of the reasons I came back, because I wanted to do some of this, is we've always really worked hard on getting places, right? This is great, you come up 100, and that's a great, what happens when you hit the village, the pavement stops, right? And we pay through cities, but we really haven't in towns and villages. But I don't know how long this will last, and hopefully it'll last for decades. Really investing in main places, but it's been since the 50s since we've really invested in downtowns. So there's an opportunity to lose, but there's also maybe a relatively short window, maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 years to actually do something in downtowns in Maine. And I'm going to retire in 5 or 6, so I really like to invest in many places. I'm like Jared, I'm a native Mainer.
Oh, you're stuck now.
I'll never get to retire.
Yeah, no. Put me back talking to you next time you want to do that.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad to hear that there's a change in, I guess, philosophy of how to invest. And it's not just like do the main roads and, the towns are on their own.
Still got to do those, but
Still
this is
gotta do
over,
those.
this is the frosting.
Yeah. So it's nice to have, at a statewide level, recognition that downtown parts are important, because the interstate is great. I use it all the time to get to Portland to do what I need to do and stuff, but it bypasses the downtowns. And downtowns have really suffered because of that. And then your towns people suffer because there's no funding and the businesses aren't getting visited. A lot to what Pete was saying, it's like, how do we pull people back into our downtown and rebuild that business district and that historic feel, and just bring people back to town.
And that's all over the state, everywhere, right? I grew up in Sullivan, and Sullivan's kind of off to the left a little bit, and that beautiful little historic bones there. But I think one of the things those towns, and that's what we're talking about today, is vision, right? A few towns, not many, but really dug their heels in, stuck to their vision. And one that I often think of, and the commissioner mentions all the time, is Damer Scott. Damer Scott is stuck to their vision. We're going to be a downtown, gosh darn it, if it kills us. And that lived a little differently than most of the rest of us that in the 50s, we kind of, 50s, 60s, and 70s, because I don't remember much since the late 60s, because I'm just a toddler, but I remember the decline, right? And this is an opportunity to reverse that,
So to continue with this process, I'm wondering if you would maybe offer a few towns that you would recommend that we contact. Examples of things that went well.
Yeah, I think
you don't have to come up with anything.
I would do that.
If you could send it to the town manager,
definitely will.
that would give us something to start with. Maybe we can all kind of pick their brains.
It's really unfortunate. A lot of them switch town managers, but I do have one that I'll definitely give her that likes to talk.
Okay, very good. Appreciate that. Anything else here in the building? There's one person online named Resident. Do you have anything that you'd like to comment or ask? Going once. All right. Thank you very much. So what I'd like to do, yes.
Sorry, I was reading through my notes.
Briefly,
you had mentioned another problem called Raise.
Yeah. So under the it's been around for a while. It used to be the Bill Grants. There's been a bunch of names. Every time they reauthorize, they change the name. But in this recent reauthorization, they've increased the number of grant types for federal highway for all for stuff like this. Everything from resiliency to safety to a lot of things. Went up by about 13. We have about 13 more than we ever had before, too.
So that's a federal funding.
And raises kind of our bread and butter because it's generally for highways. It hits things like equity, economic development, mobility, reducing VMT. So just by having people come to Pittsfield instead of going to Augusta or Waterville reduces VMT. So we can take credit for those. RAISE is just one of those grants, and it's kind of the bread and butter one.
Okay, it was one I never heard of.
Yeah, sorry about that. It used to be Belleville and Tiger and a bunch of.
I've heard Tiger before.
As it changes, they like to change
All right,
it.
very well, thank you. So what I'd like to do is poll the council. I personally think this is well worth moving ahead, and I would request that these gentlemen would continue the conversation and work with the town manager to kind of identify the parameters which we have. You willing to go forward? Yeah, very good. Yes, 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 very good. So we'd like to continue forward with this, so you have our blessing in a way. And so you think maybe in a month or so that we would have some feedback?
I think we can do that in a month.
Okay.
And I think we're not going to ask Randy to stop. So in the meantime, everything will just proceed as it is today.
Right.
That way, if you say, gentlemen, go home, then we'll just go home then.
Okay, very good. So what we will do in the meantime, we'll, if you could share those contacts, at least the towns that you would recommend,
Yep.
3 or 4 anyway, maybe we could kind of get an idea where to start because they've already, earned their stripes on that. Maybe we can kind of, continue on their backs and see what we can do to get started. At least hit the road sooner than later. So in the meantime, we'll continue on and we'll try to figure out how we can do this.
Okay.
It's been a long process, but if there's anything else, gentlemen? All right, well, thank you very much for coming here tonight. We really appreciate your time. I know it makes for very long days for you. So thank you. You're willing to sit and stay as long as you wish?
I think I'll go find some dinner.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate your time. Thank you, guys. All right, Catherine, let's continue on with being the community and economic development activity. Now, that's if you would go through that briefly, please.
All right, I will be
Thank you.
extremely brief because we discussed some of the items this evening. You have the handouts that show all of the grants that we have, the amounts of money and what the items are for, as well as the monies that have been deposited with the town, and the write-ups of the different meetings that have taken place with the state officials on the projects that we're looking at. And you have information on the airport grant, and you've received some information this evening. So I will, because we do have a short agenda, I will keep my comments short too. And then going on briefly to number C, presentation or conclusion, I would say, regarding the town's budget and mill rate history. We went through a lot of history on the last 20 years on the tax rate, the municipal budget, why we had an incline or an increase in the budgets in the last 3 years due to the town council's new budgeting process, rather than having a cap of looking at the actual items, and if the departments felt they were necessary, they were able to submit them. We looked at the level of exemptions, which in this town is quite high. We have a lot of tax exempt property. We looked at the amount of the personal property tax and how it's changed over the 20 years from 21.8% personal property in 2001, now down to 5.4% because so much of personal property has been phased out. Some has left town, some has come in, but the state law changed in 2007 in which a lot of the categories of personal property were being phased out, and the objective of the state legislature at that time was to phase out personal property over the next 10 to 15 years, and they are effectively doing that. Currently, there is a reimbursement process in which we receive 50 to 54%. We're a high achiever because we have so much personal property. We then heard from our current tax assessor about a method to bring a 1/4 review of the properties in the town over a 4-year period until all value is updated to make sure that we pick up all the valuation changes that have taken place before we would do an equalization or a reval in which the values would change. So during that 4 sections, any missing value would automatically, of course, be placed onto the tax rolls the next April 1st. But there would not be any overall changes in the valuation of one section of town until all 4 sections could be done. So basically, we've looked at all this, which tells us how we got to the point that we're at now. And you're getting the information a little bit ahead. I was going to do it this summer for your August workshop that you would have on the budget as like a preliminary one, but you've already got the information because we went through the exercise now. So if there's anything else that you would like, let me know. And if not, I'll say that we've concluded this, and we've got some nice charts of history, which are on the website for people to look at. Thank you.
All right, Catherine, thank you very much. Public hearings there are none. Let's go to reports. The Council Committee's Finance Committee.
We haven't been.
Very well. Ordinance Committee.
Hasn't been.
Very well. Recycling Committee.
Has not met.
No, thank you. And we will continue on with board committee updates, please. Catherine, if you would.
Yes, it's been very quiet at the beginning of this year, simply because of all the activities that took place last year and how we got ahead on some of the ordinance items as well as finance items to set up a whole new procedure. So there are no committee meetings that are scheduled in the next week or so.
Okay. And let's move on to the your report, please. If you could read us digest version, just the highlights, please.
Yes, I'm getting pretty good at that, too.
That's good. Thank you for that.
All right, very good. Just to note that we are going through the computer upgrade process, and so that has been quite interesting, in which we do have all the new computers, but we have all the old printers that are required by the state of Maine for their processes. So when you have new and old mixed together, there are issues that have developed. So the computer company is working on that, as well as the Trio financial software in the state of Maine. This is something that's happened to other towns. So our next process is the training for the web-based Trio financial system. So that's coming up at the end of this week, and then we'll have 1 week in which we can practice on everything, and then we'll go live at the end of the month. Just in time for the audit, so that will be fun. I will go down through the next section of items, which are all the items that we report on to the citizens. This is on the website, on the burn permits, the transfer station stickers, dog licenses, online services, all the online council materials, and then of course the reuse center information. I did go through after the last meeting and checked all of the links on the online services, and everything is working good. I would like to remind everybody we do have a special election for town councilor that's come up. That is for open position. It will be on Thursday from 12 o'clock noon to 6 o'clock p.m. We have 2 candidates. So Thursday, April 21st, everybody please come out and vote here in the municipal building. Number 8, Somerset County Budget Public Hearing. Materials arrived a few days ago from the county commissioners. They'll be having a public hearing on Monday, April 25th, 6 o'clock p.m. in the Superior Courtroom, 41 Court Street, Skowhegan. The town council has received a copy of the proposed county budget. It's available here for the public if anyone's interested. The proposed county tax for the town of Pittsfield is $612,416, rounding it. The 2021 county budget our assessment was $570,274. So we have a $42,142 increase, a 7.4% increase. That's one of the larger increases we've had in the county budget for a long time, and some of that has to do with the debt service and the jail and how they're trying to pay that off as soon as possible. Number 9, Spirit of America County presentation will be taking place on May 4th, beginning at 3 o'clock p.m. It will be on Zoom at the county courthouse. The 2020 and 2021 awards for the Volunteers for the Spirit of America for all towns in the county will be recognized. Our recipients were, for 2020, Paul E. Bertrand. I spoke with him, and he's excited about it, but not excited about Zoom. 2021 will be was our candidate in memory of Elton Chinkat. And then, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, which set right in as soon as we were getting ready to do our celebrations, both the county and the town were unable to hold those. So the county is putting this together our district will be on May 4th. Anyone that would like to Zoom, please let me know. I'm going to put it on the town website so anyone can pop in if they want to. Number 10 is SAD 53 District Public Hearing. Will be held on the 2022 to 2023 proposed SAD budget on Thursday, May 19th, 6:30 p.m. in the Warsaw Gym, and then we'll have the referendum in June. And we've got an updated budget assessment from the school. They've done some more cutting to try to get things further down in terms of the increase, and so that's an attachment too. The summer concert series for 2022 is attached to your town manager's report, also on the town website. Starting out on July 7th with Scott Cole, a singer-songwriter, ends on August 25th with Conspiracy, which is danceable rock, so they have everything, something for everyone. All concerts are at Hawthorne Park, Thursday nights, 6 to 8 p.m., and that's in attachment 3. I also have done a note at the last meeting. I put it in here too because it was so important. Fenway Park Boat Launch project will be starting up again with Bill Cunningham. He's back in action here. He's got a new plan for the staircase boat slide, and Klein Smith is working with him, which is wonderful. We will have the speed trailer here at the beginning of May, and that's always exciting. We know where we need to put it in terms of the roads where there's more speeding here. The police have been cracking down on that, but the speed trailer will be here for 2 weeks. We'll be moving it around town. It'll show the speed that people are going at. I'll mention number 17 because this was a nice achievement. We could never understand why the airport was considered under the multi-sector general permit and industrial permit and industrial user. And so we had to do a lot of testing on a quarterly basis, as well as training. The training is fine. The federal government has decided that they will exempt all the little airports that do not have mechanic work taking place outside. So we'll be able to avoid that permit in the future and all of the testing and public works going down in the storms to get water samples and everything. And then the last item I'll mention, there are many items here, but you can read that yourself. Grant paperwork filings. We have all of our 14 grants have filings from April 30th up to June 30th. And so we'll make sure those are all done. We have the new federal numbering system and the new federal website where they put 10 different websites together. So this has already been quite interesting. So I found that we'll just do one at a time and get them all done. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Catherine. Old business, there is none. Let's go to new business then, please. Resolution 22-39, if you will, please, Catherine.
Resolution 22-39, resolved that the town council acts as necessary on the Maine DOT Planning Partnership Initiative, PPI.
I will look for a motion from council.
We open for discussion, resolution 22-39.
I'll second it. Moved and seconded. This is the polling I had with council, as Mr. Dowdy had mentioned and recommended that the council, if they would choose so in the affirmative, that they essentially give them permission to go ahead and start pursuing this, and then put the onus on us to kind of figure out what we would have for vision here for downtown. So that's what this resolution is for. It kind of formalizes what we had all agreed upon. Any discussions or comments, council? There's a lot of details on this whole process that will become identified and come to fruition as it goes along. So I'm not too concerned that I don't have 100% grasp on it. I'm probably maybe 70. I'll admit it. But I think we've got some good background. If we can get the other towns' feedback that have already gone through this process, I feel very comfortable with you gentlemen. I think they'll be leading us in the right direction. Anything else, council? Very well. Hearing none, since we're ready to vote, all those in favor of resolution 22-39, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Resolution 22-39 passes. Discussion items, department reports.
Yes, you have a
Catherine?
copy of all the department reports, and so those are self-explanatory. Any questions, let me know.
What's up with that?
Yes, thank you.
Very well. How was that? Short and sweet.
Yes, thank you.
So let's go ahead and wrap up this meeting here. We'll start the person on the Zoom call, resident. Do you have any questions or comments that you'd like to bring up here at the end of the meeting? Very well. Anyone in the audience who wishes to make a question, comment, or anything? Heather, please.
As Catherine mentioned earlier, there is an election on Thursday. I am a candidate for the open at-large position for council. I appreciate any votes for that. I'd like to continue serving the town on the council. Yeah.
That's it?
I would just like to continue serving.
Short, sweet, fantastic, thank you. So when are the polls open for that candidate?
Yes, noon to 6 o'clock.
Noon to 6 p.m.?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And if anyone out there in TV land, please, everyone go out and vote. I'd like to see the whole town out. Every vote, no matter what it is. It's all set, Heather? Mr. Biggio, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
I applaud you for moving ahead with this downtown effort. Del Dowdy is a great person to interact with. He understands the program. He's well versed, and he outlined the program for you, but it has a lot of flexibility. And a lot of what happens here will be determined by you in the community. And so it means that you need to be engaged and be very, very creative about what could be or will be. And I'm very confident that we'll get the support we need, not only from the DOT, but also our political representation in Augusta. This can change this community in a very dynamic way if we really work at this, and it's not going to be up to one or two people to do it. It's going to be a collective effort on the part of everybody in the community over the next few months to make a submission that is something that will really enhance and improve the town. And it's happened in other communities, and it can happen here as well. And I wouldn't just set my eyes on what was outlined here today, but think big and be creative, because there may be some private money to support this as well. The other thing I'd like to chat about, if it's possible, I'm doing a survey on this community right now. We've got a number of buildings and areas in this town that don't meet code, building code I'm talking about, that are dilapidated. Some in really decent neighborhoods, some not. There's no sign of code enforcement here. And it's a sad commentary. You know, we employ about 400 full-time people here every day, between our shops and our yards and our office. I'd like to see 600. We've expanded offices in Bangor, in Grove, in Falmouth, and in Portland. And I bring people here to engage them in this community, and they choose not to live here. Think about what they see. How unattractive it is. Their spouses don't want to be here. And it's up to us to turn this around, because this is a great place to grow up. I came here in 1955, when it was a vibrant community. Walk around and see what I see. We got a long ways to go. I'm not just going to dump it on you. I'm prepared to assist and help, and we'll do our share. But I need your help, and your vision, and your mindset, and your attitude to move this town forward and get back to where we were. In 1976, I came on this council. This building didn't exist. There was an old town hall here. The office of the town was down by the mobile station at the foot of the hill, in a white wooden building down there, because the structure that was here was unfit. That town hall was torn down, and the fire station was built with a gift of $68,000. That's the fire station. And the fun began. We got a grant to build this building. And we started cleaning up the downtown. And over that period of time, we took our waste out of the river. Some of you might remember that. We built that treatment facility. We built water lines and sewers. And we did all of this in about 4 years. And it can happen again. But unless there's a vision and someone sets a standard and says we're going to clean the town up and we're going to make it impressive so people want to live here, or we can stay the way we are. And I think we all can agree that we can improve, but it's going to take all of us and it's going to take a vision. I'm prepared to do my part with my company here. But I can tell you, our tax base is shrinking, it's not growing. And that's unnecessary. It's sad. And I'm not here to give anybody help. I'm asking you for your help and your support, because we got a ways to go. I'm going to come at another meeting if I get invited back, and I want to show you some pictures. It's a sad commentary that we don't have a full-time court enforcement officer. People are building all kinds of structures all through this town, and there's no building permits, there's no code, there's nothing. It wasn't always that way. What's happening? Look at the condition of our streets and our roads. Just look at the physical condition. Walk around this building. How long has it been since the shrubs have been pruned here? These trees out here, I pruned them with 4 kids. What, 5 years ago? They haven't been touched. You got a letter missing on the front of the building here. Notice that? Pittsfield town office? Go out, look. Been missing for a long time. Where are the standards? What do we want to look like? Do we want to be an inviting community that makes a statement when people come here and say, man, I want to live here? Or do we want it to be something that people would prefer to live someplace else? Because I'll tell you what's happening. Our tax base is shrinking. And it's not meeting with the towns. Our numbers in our schools is shrinking. The age of the people that live in this community is increasing all the time. Fast forward 20 years and see what we're going to look like. And I ask you for your help and the vision, and it's going to take all of us. You know, we live in a digitized world, do we not? Do we?
Supposed to.
What's all these boxes for? What if we had a flood or a fire? Do you know what kind of labor it takes to handle paper like this? How many work hours it takes when we're not digitized? I represent 4,000 people that work in 40 states throughout this country. And that little building over there does it. All of it. Payroll, accounts, receivables, 100%. That one little building. Look at this. Does anybody know what's in those boxes? What are we doing? I just sent somebody over to the fire department because our fire system didn't work. Because the system was so old and ancient. We bought the system when we installed it. Thank God for Bernard Williams to tell me what was going on here. They couldn't communicate with the other fire departments in case they had a bad fire. Needs to get better. I'm more than willing to pay my share. And I'll help. I've never said no. To the town, the fire truck breaks, the town garage equipment breaks because they don't have a mechanic or somebody to weld on it, they take it to our shop and we fix it for you. And we will continue to do that. But my God, we got to get better. And I ask you for your help and your support. And all you have to do is call, and we'll be there. But at the same time, please, please look at the standards that we've adopted for ourselves over the last several years and start thinking about the future so that we can improve and take advantage of this offering that Dale and this other gentleman provided us. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. All right, with that, Annalise, anything that you want to,
No, I'm really here just to learn about the DOT initiative and how that might affect the stuff under the ground.
sounds like a very interesting project. Interesting is an all-encompassing word. So I'll go to the council then. I'll start with Deputy Mayor Lodgenice.
I have no report this evening.
Very well. Councilor Frost.
I had just one question. Maybe I missed something. But did we ever get a resolution on the dispatch, member of the Somerset County?
We haven't got a presentation. I've seen nothing from them. They were supposed to come and give us a presentation. Catherine, if you could briefly give us an update on that.
Yes, I actually was going to mention that, but I have 3 other items I did put in the town manager's report because I had to end it at some point. On the county dispatch, we were very fortunate. The sheriff, the EMA director, and the Skowhegan chief came up and met with acting chief Cochran, our administrative assistant Amy Kitchen, and myself to go over the project. And so we were going to write up the notes from that meeting, but we realized we still don't understand why we should be making the large payment. It went down from $100,000 to $89,000 and some odd change. So at the time we were going to call the county because we're waiting for some information. They've decided that they're going to have a large meeting in which they're going to invite the towns down to the courthouse, I believe, to go over a presentation from the Central Square people and provide a Zoom option. So once they get that date all set, they had to wait till they got past the spring vacations with their children, they were going places with their children. So they were going to get that set up, and when they do, I'll provide you with that information. So we're going to have an actual presentation. There's still a lot of questions.
So will that be a week, month, a year? Do we know?
It sounded
Ballpark.
like it was going to be at the end of April, beginning of May.
Okay.
Yeah. So as soon as the dates get set, they had a couple of dates they were looking at, I'll let you know, and you can either go in person if you wanted to, or you can watch it on Zoom.
All right.
Thank you. That's all I got.
All set, Mr. Frost? All right, Councilor Hall.
Yeah, I took some notes before I came to the meeting, and I just had a couple questions. Where do we stand on hiring the assistant town manager, an HR rep, a treasurer, an assistant rec director, a permanent full-time public works director, the pool director?
So we've got our public works director. We didn't decide to go forward and hire a full-time one. Donnie was.
So Donnie's going to be okay.
Donnie was appointed to that.
So there's one. Yeah.
So that one's the pool director will be put up. We've got some applications, but that will be advertised once the rec director decides on what he wants in the job description. We've been advertising through Ideal.
Well, he wouldn't know the job. He's new to the position. He wouldn't know the job description of the pool director.
He actually has job descriptions prior, or listings of items. and Devin Barney and he were going to talk about what the tasks were. So,
Okay.
and I would assume what I would do is check with other towns and get job descriptions off the internet. So,
Well, we've had a pool director for decades, so we should have that description for that job on file.
We do have information on file.
Okay.
However, with a new department head, you want them to have an opportunity to, set their own expectations and everything.
Okay.
All right, in terms of the other two positions, we have advertised extensively through Ideal. The ads in the newspaper have not done any good. And so that advertising continues.
Well, I went on the town website and Jobs in Maine today, and there's nothing for the town of Pittsfield. There isn't an assistant town manager, there isn't an HR rep, there isn't a treasurer, nothing.
All right, it's been on there until this weekend on Sunday, because to add something to it, which we wanted to do, requires us to instead of just having the job descriptions in there, somehow they're engraved into the website, but I can show you captions that shows it's been on there the whole time. But this weekend I've been working on it. We need to straighten out how it's listed so it's better caught up by Google.
Okay.
It's been put in incorrectly, basically, and so we need to straighten it out, which is what I'm working on.
All right. Who does our water and sewer billing?
The town
Upstairs.
office staff does the water and sewer billing.
Was there anybody specifically hired and trained for that, or?
Yes.
And who was that?
Lauren.
Well, Lauren was hired as a finance clerk.
Well, that's a finance clerk, does the water and sewer billing, and has for over 10 years. 12 years, I
And
think.
she's been properly trained for that?
She has been trained by myself, and there was a video, a web-based video, and a training class that she's gone to.
Okay.
And I've been working with her on that, as well as the other people.
All right. A couple other things. I think 200 pages of printed paper times 6 every 2 weeks is kind of obnoxious. We obviously pay for the paper plus the printing of the paper with leased printer upstairs. So I think that's just a complete waste of time and money. Plus, these are handwritten page numbers for 211 pages. We have Adobe Pro. Adobe Pro will put page numbering on every sheet, whatever the document is, it will automatically number it. We should not be spending time handwriting 211 sheets of paper, printing it out, and then delivering it to 6 counselors around town, and then charging for the mileage that it takes to deliver it to those counselors. If I want a printed document, I will print it. If other counselors need a printed document, they can come here and get it, and we won't charge the town for our mileage. So that's just more wasted money. That's all it is. That's wasted time, effort, money for anybody to be handwriting 211 pages is obnoxious in this day and age. Should not happen. Who the hell's doing that? And they're getting what, $18 an hour? Unless the town manager's doing it, then they're getting $90 grand a year to write 210 pages
Do we have
of handwriting.
Do we have Adobe Pro? That
Yes,
use
we
that?
do. Yes, we
It's
do.
not just the reader.
We got it last year.
Okay. Yeah.
So in terms of the paperwork, the council asked, and specifically you, to have the information and have the individuals come here and meet specifically with you on that program. And so those are the materials that they provided. All the packages are not 200 pages long. This is all the material that was
Well, I've
provided.
been on the council for a year and a half. Most of these are 100 pages or more.
Not all.
And I didn't ask for a hard copy. No, I wanted to talk to them. And you sent me an email with this in it, so I was fine.
All right, but not all counselors are. So if any counselors do not want to have...
It's just a microcosm of the overall issues. That we shouldn't be doing hand numbering, we shouldn't be driving around, spending money to deliver this to all these people. That's just wasted time and money.
So the Adobe Pro does number these. I mean, he is right. There are 211 sheets, all done by hand. And if the Adobe Pro is used correctly, you take these documents, put them in, and it'll number it. It'll number it any way you want, be 1 of 211 or 1, or UV project response page. So there are ways that it can be done electronically. It doesn't have to be handwritten. I understand this point, because I've used it many times myself.
All right, well, I'll
Anyway.
check into that.
Yeah, it would be worth looking into, because I understand this point, because there's a lot of paper here that, you know, I just soon have a laptop here, and if we can get the sound set up here and laptops or tablets for use here, it'd be much better. It would be a lot cheaper.
All right, that's
And that would
fine.
segue into all the other paper documents that we've been talking about for a number of years, about getting scanned and getting rid of those ISO.
Yes, but we can't scan them until the council approves the budget request. and it's been
Understood,
thrown out.
understood, Catherine.
But in terms of the council packages, if anyone does not want a council package, let me know right now. You don't want one? Correct.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would love to not have all these copies.
Yeah,
I was just making a point.
No, I mean, it's a valid point, and I didn't mean to steal your thunder and hand one, but I think if we can deal with this right now, I don't want them either.
What has to be scanned? What's being scanned?
What are you talking about?
What you just said?
No, I was talking about all the records, all the
No,
laws, yeah.
they're there because the
It's
budget
related.
allocation has
Right,
been...
I went off, I apologize, I took your time, so I don't need a call.
All right, anyway.
Okay. So we've eliminated Eric, you're all set? Lovely. This is not the way it's been in the past. Okay.
You gentlemen want hard copies?
You want yours.
I like hard copy.
Yeah, and you want yours. Okay.
Are you guys willing to drive up here and grab it?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
And in terms of charging for mileage, I've only charged for a quarter of what I use. I just charge 50 cents.
All right, as of this point on, it's a non-issue.
All right, and then the final thing was, what's been done about, so I was in the town office, I don't know, last Friday, 2 Fridays ago, whatever it was, and there was a house that was foreclosed on, and the resident was never notified that her house was foreclosed, and she was in the town office trying to sell her house, close on her house that day for it to be sold, only to find out that it was foreclosed and she could not sell her house.
The resident is totally knowledgeable about the house being foreclosed.
She is now, when she was told the day that it was foreclosed, the day she was trying to sell
There's
it.
a process that we go through, and we hear
And then-
this every year. She is totally, she is knowledgeable of this, as well as the 6 years of water and sewer bills and liens that are due, the 3 years of tax liens that are due. She's familiar with this.
So when I was up there, the resident was looking for information. The girls that were up there didn't have the background on it. They were trying to come to you. You were had to get prepared for a meeting. While I was up there, they found a notice that the woman was supposed to receive, but it was a return to sender, which means the woman never received it. If it hadn't got the return to sender, you would have had a certified green notification saying that the woman did receive it. And that, unless that is upstairs somewhere, That had never got given to her.
And so we've got some misinformation here.
No, I don't think we do. I was there, and I saw the return to sender.
Yeah, and there are other materials that are in that office that has the other items that were sent out. And plus, I was not notified that this was going on, but I was actually on a Zoom call conference, so that's why I wasn't notified. And I didn't even know she was out there until later in the afternoon. And we
Well, I was there,
and we had laid out a method for the real estate agent that's representing her and the other real estate agent as to how the transfer could take place and they could go along their merry way.
when you got the return to sender letter, did you send it to the correct address?
Yes,
So you have the green certification that that woman received that letter? That's upstairs right now?
I assume so.
Well, you said
It was sent out.
she knew about it.
She knew
so-
about it.
So that green certificate should be
So
upstairs.
when she came in, as I understand, and then later discussion, she was aware that she had taxes that were due and it had to be paid.
Right, she came in to pay her taxes so she could sell her house.
Correct.
She didn't know it was foreclosed on.
All right, well, we're going to disagree on the details here. Because we've been through this several years with some people. And there is
Well, she was never notified, and
she was notified.
then you can produce the green certificate that she received it. Because that would come from
It was
the
sent
U.S.
out to the
Post.
new address, yes.
And it's certified mail, so you would get a certification back.
I know how this works, yes.
Okay, so I guess I'd like to see
Yeah, I would
that.
say the ladies, there's...
I'd like to see the green.
There's piles of items that need to be gone through in order to get to that particular one. They're filing...
That's fine. I'd just like to see that green certificate saying that she received it. I mean, the woman was extremely upset. She thought she was closing on her house that day, and she was unable to do that because of this foreclosure. That she wasn't.
Upset numerous years.
I'm going to jump in here. Catherine, if you
Yes.
could follow up on his
Of
request,
course.
please. There may be history that has been accounted for, Jason,
Yes.
in all fairness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
there's a
good.
lot of history with several people whose
Right.
properties have foreclosed or get paid up the day before or that day.
Let's move on, please. Jason, anything else?
I'm good.
Council Sassia?
Something Brent talked about last meeting and kind of stuck with me since then was things change quickly, and especially right now in the economic environment, how much things cost and inflation and budgets. And so when we go forward through the year, even though things have been approved or been in theory were approved 8 or 10, 12 months ago, we just got to look at our current situation and say things are going to go up 8.5%, 10%, 12%. Asphalt's going to be high, 30%. So we just got to be mindful that some things that we said that we were going to do, we're not going to be able to do to the budget. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but we just have to all agree that we're going to be over. I mean, I guarantee at work our fuel budget is going to be over this year. I guarantee our insurance budget is going to be over. Like there's about every element of the business is going over budget. So we got to be prepared. And some of the things we said we're going to do, and sometimes you just tug the reins just a little bit and just make sure it makes sense. And as long as we all agree that it's going to be, I think it's important that we look at independent things and make sure that it's really necessary, just because spending can get wildly out of control really quickly in the next couple of years. And I think talking about police cruisers or whatever we talk about, I think there's value in discussing it, because we all have to agree that the cost is going to go up. We've got to answer the citizens and say, this is why the cost went up. So I'm not saying operate like a poor town, that's not what I'm saying, but we just got to be aware. That's the...
Asphalt's up $15 a ton more last week in Clement.
Yep. And I'm not saying sit in our hands is the right decision. I'm just saying we just got to be aware of where everything's headed. Things I said I was going to do at home, I'm not doing this year because building costs are too expensive, right? So it's, even though I budgeted for it, I'd say put 10 grand away and do some improvements. Probably not going to do them this year. So that's all I got.
Councilor Jester?
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
All right, very well, thank you. I'll be as brief as possible. And I kind of want to shy away to bring this up because I live on the road, but are there plans for grading Sibley Pond Road?
Yes.
There are a lot of other people that mentioned it too.
Yes.
When do they plan on doing that?
As soon as the weather provides the opportunity.
I guess. Okay, so he has been talked about. Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Last time RJD was here, he gave us a pretty decent proposal, and from your initial question from way back when, Eric, and it coming to fruition, is a very excellent question. So he said he would probably provide a blank of a proposal that we could use to. Did you get that from him?
He provided a breakdown of what the cost would be. I didn't want to distribute it because if you did choose to put it up to bid, it would put him at unfair.
Right, I understand, but he had offered, maybe we're probably asking too much from a businessman, where we would actually probably look at competitors to get a basic form that we could use to go out to start getting pricing, so that if it's within a certain range, we can look at the next budget process. So do we have anything could you follow up with that?
Yes, we
I think
have.
we ought to kind of continue on this because it's been, what do we say, 40 years, 30 years we have the last full assessment? Whatever, however long it's been.
1990.
Yeah. So someone else do that now. 30
Yes,
years.
I've got a form that I looked up on the internet,
Okay.
and then the materials that Rob gave us.
All right, thank you. And I had forwarded you a letter from a citizen about the crossing guard at Central, Sunset, and Hartland. I hadn't really noticed it because when I was living on Central, I knew it all the time, but apparently there isn't a guard. That's not a town thing, that's a school.
It's a school
Functional.
item, and I did contact the superintendent, realizing what the answer would be, and those positions, too, were cut out of the budget, with the one remaining by Somerset Avenue
Right.
in school.
Have we decided we could use that speed sign at that point? Have you talked with acting Chief Cochran or Chief Bickmore?
So yes, Marty has going to coordinate with the Public Works Director on the locations, and that's one of the locations. We just have to get it far enough away from that area, so it's not right in the way. But yes, when the speed zone sign comes at the beginning of May, there's several locations where it can be put, and that's one of them that could be a strategy.
So that may be a dual purpose.
Yeah.
'Cause I hadn't realized that when she mentioned that to me, I was not flabbergasted, but I was a little surprised because that's a significant intersection,
Yes, and there's a lot more
especially
traffic.
at 2:30 in the
There's
afternoon.
a lot more traffic there than in prior years. So I have contacted her initially and talking to the traffic engineers in Bangor about looking at the Somerset Plaza intersection again, and perhaps the one down by Central Street, Somerset and Heartland.
Yeah, I think that would be a little bit better than up over Hill, but in my opinion, but thank you for following up with that. So the last thing I just want to bring up, one thing that Dale and Jared had mentioned to us about, working with us on this, but we need to have a vision of some kind. I don't have the answers. I kind of want to put a bug in everyone's ear, think about how we want to do this. I mean, what is it a committee that we do? Do we have a big town meeting? Do we call in all business leaders? So I'm kind of leaning towards have the councils involved at a minimum. Volunteers, I'm sure that you'd be interested in that possibly. If I ask you, Mr. Biggie, I'm sure you'd be more than happy to give us your input on that. So I don't know how we do this, but I'd like to kind of flesh out how we need to do this. Would it be just the council? I don't think the council would have the horsepower to do that. We need to have more input, in my opinion. I'd look at offer all the business owners, even if we get 20% of them, that's still going to be a good chunk of people. And if we have to borrow the gymnasium at Warsaw for all these meetings, I think that's fantastic. So I will put it to you, councilors, and anyone else listening, kind of think about how we want to do this, what the committee would look like, what our scope would be, how soon should we start? I'd say as soon as possible. And that's part of the reason why I'd asked him if he can provide some other towns that have been successful or even had struggles that would be willing to talk to us, and maybe we can call them and ask them, okay, how did you do this? What did you find that worked? What didn't work for you? What would you have for suggestions? You know, so we have other people in this state that, you know, they're gone through this very process. You know, so if we can learn from them, I think it's well worth it.
We would definitely have at least one community meeting so that everybody who was interested.
Right, yep, that was just one of the options, I just wanted to kind of get over and think about, so I would ask the council if you come up with some ideas, either written down or formal presentation or just in your head. I'd like to kind of get something starting to flesh out on the next meeting. Maybe we make that a discussion item at the end. So that's what I'd ask from the council. And anyone else listening, Heather, if you would want to weigh in on that. Peter, I'm sure I'll be talking to you between now and then. I appreciate the time, sir. So with that, I will look for a motion to close.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Very well. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
People going around, I saw Tim go around leaving, trying to find super